Yeah, so as a doctor, even when I wasn't on the geriatric ward, a lot of the patients we have are elderly people, and we know the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that the one who doesn't show mercy to young people and who doesn't show respect to the elderly is not from us, right? And this is a really scary hadith, really. And we see a trend in Western society to really really neglecting the elder generation, and sadly we also see this in Muslim communities as well. And I don't think it's not a problem in of itself, but it's a symptom of a larger problem. It's a symptom of society and societal values that's very individualistic, and it doesn't really think about, a lot of people now, you ask them that they'd rather be dead than go be old, and sadly the elder generation have so much to teach us, and they're so incredible people. Really, we have a lot of fun on the ward. Some of them are a little bit confused, but they're, mashallah, very, very inspiring people. And I met one of my patients was 93 years old, and he just finished his PhD. 93-year-old finishing a PhD. And a lot of these people, I remember, actually I had a patient, this is so incredible. This a man who he'd basically he had a stroke, and so he'd very acutely he had lost a lot of his memory, and he was very aggressive, and he didn't know who he was or where he was, and he was a bit aggressive to the nurses. He was like shouting at them and trying to escape from the ward. And so the nurses was asking, they asked his wife, was he aggressive before? And she said, what do you mean? Well, did he ever like raise his voice or do anything? Oh, she said, oh, he raised his voice before in the past. And I says, well, what do you mean? Oh, he did it twice. Meaning like in 50 years of marriage, this guy raised his voice at his wife twice, 2 times. This is incredible. Like, who can say that, right? SubhanAllah, right? And a lot of these elders, I sit with them and talk with them, and get a cup of tea and sit next to them and just say, hey, how's it going? And they love to tell you their stories from when they were younger, and the women like to talk about their husbands a lot. And so we always ask them, what's the secret, staying married for 60 years or something, and they always have something nice to say. And it's really sad that these people are being neglected, and it's really the breakdown of the family unit. We don't have this nuclear family anymore. It's very small and isolated. So it's something we should really be thinking of, the elders in our society. What is their place? What is their role? Do we respect them? Do we learn from them? So, yeah.
Ramadan is in 85 days, inshallah. How do you feel about that, and what advice do you have for our leaders?
Yeah, 85 days, that's very scary. Really, Islam always teaches us to reflect and to improve ourselves. I think there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the one who spends 2 days the same, meaning if your yesterday is the same as today, you're a loser, right? You lost out. So if you're not going forward, you're going backwards by definition. And actually it's even more than that, because to stay where you are requires effort, right? Because there's this pull that's taking you down. There's all these sort of all these temptations and all these tricks and all these things that can distract you in life. And just to stay where you are is difficult, right? To maintain. So that requires effort, but that's not good enough in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, no, you have to go beyond that. So you have to move forward. So from each, like we're taught, each salat, from your Fajr to your Dhuhr to your Asr, and from each Jum'ah to Jum'ah, and then from each Ramadan to each Ramadan, we have to reflect and consider how much we've changed or grown or not grown. And there's always this beautiful opportunity that you can keep coming back, and Ramadan is like that. It's a sort of they say Ramadan is your friend. It's there to remind you and sort of give you another opportunity to come back. And so yeah, my advice would be just for myself first. My advice would be just to do one thing. I think we try and do all these things and it's too difficult and we don't maintain it. Do one thing, and if we can just keep to that one thing, if it's, for example, reading 1 page of Quran a day. If you don't read Quran a day, read 1 page a day, or even less than that. And if you can maintain that for for 1 year, then that's incredible. That's better than reading a whole juz in Ramadan and then leaving the Quran for the rest of the year. Yeah.
What are your top 3 favorite books of all time? I know you cannot say the Quran, Bukhari or Muslim.
Okay, Abu Dawood. No. Okay, so books, I think I like reading a real variety of things. I think from the spiritual Islamic side, I love the writings of Imam al-Haddad. They're very simple and very accessible and very, it's very reassuring. You can take his books. I think I studied a book, Adab al-Murid. I think it was written by Imam al-Haddad. A very small book, and I studied it over 3 days, and that was life-changing. And his other books, like Book of Assistance, and others, have so much in them, and they're very, very, very accessible. You can just take it, and there's very practical advice for you to do and live from. So I think Imam al-Haddad's work is one thing which I recommend everybody to read. It's very simple and easily laid out. Alhamdulillah, there's very good publications. And then the work of Tariq Ramadan is also another. Anything written by Tariq Ramadan is very, very incredible. I think I'm reading at the moment The Quest for Meaning, which is his sort of understanding of what does it mean to be sort of a global citizen in understanding pluralism, and sort of it's a very philosophical book, I guess, so far. But it's also, I think it's really important in order to understand who we are and what are we doing and why we do what we do, and to ask ourselves these questions, because I think too many of us we just get up and we're just doing things like a robot, right? Like you said, right? But to be people who think is very important. And we know the first words revealed to the Prophet ﷺ was Iqra, right? So Iqra means to read, but it also means to think, because you have to think in order to read, right? Or to recite. It's also asking us to reflect and to ponder and to just ask ourselves these questions, who we are and what is our, just what are we doing? What's our life purpose? And people say, oh, my life purpose is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Okay, but that's not. In the Quran, ubud, to be a worshipper, abid. The word ubudiyya, it's a big concept. It's not just meaning you pray and you fast. Ubudiyya is to be a slave, to be a servant, to be someone who prays, to live a life of servitude. So, our worship isn't in the masjids. That's just, we mentioned like your worship is, or your ibadah is like a ship for your ship, and you get safety when you from the stormy seas around you. But the ship isn't there to give safety. That's not the point of a ship. A ship gives safety, but that's not the point of a ship. A ship is to take you somewhere. And so our worship is to take us somewhere. It's a means to something. And really our life purpose, Allah put everyone on this planet for a reason. And maybe you'll spend your whole life searching for what that reason is, but each of us have a unique purpose. It's like someone said, actually it was Professor Tariq Ramadan. He writes, he talks about this universal singularity, that each of us are unique. Like he said, it's like a fingerprint. We all have a fingerprint, but all of us have it. It's the same, but it's all different. And so whilst all of our purpose is the same, but it's different. So you're asking about books, huh? So I think it's important in terms of understanding the reasons why we are who we are, and to ask ourselves these questions. And I think Tariq Ramadan is someone who really speaks to that mindset, on an ideological level. And then I guess thirdly, there's lots of other interesting things you can read. I liked reading John Gray's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I think that's important to read for any young person. There's also, I love reading books about Mullah Nasruddin, Hajjah. And there are lots of different people. Idris Shah is someone who wrote a couple books on him. And they're all funny stories and tales, but behind them are very deep lessons. And I think there's a lot to learn from that as well.